You are listening to The Hero's Journey. I'm Dan Zarzana.
And I'm Jeff Garvin.
Let the journey begin. Show of hands, how many of you have already broken your New Year's resolution? Well, if you have, fear not, you are in the majority. Studies show that more than 80% of people fail to achieve their New Year's resolutions. Jeff, did you make a New Year's resolution?
I don't make New Year's resolutions. I create a theme for my year.
Okay. What's your theme for this year?
My theme for this year, in keeping with my Star Wars geekiness, is a force to be reckoned with.
That's good.
How about you?
I like it. No, you need to tell me more about this. This is new.
So I do
information.
I do a seminar every year called Completion, and you sort of end your year by talking about all the things that worked and didn't work, and what you gained and lost and succeeded and failed at. And then you create what you want for the next year and who you have to be to get that. So it's not so much a commitment to achieving certain goals, it's a commitment to being the kind of person that could achieve those goals.
So who do you want to be today? Who do you want to be?
I don't want to be someone on TV. How about you?
Okay.
What was your resolution this year?
Years ago, I stopped making resolutions, but lately I've been picking a very large book that I've been putting off reading because it's so big.
Ooh.
Last year, I pledged to finish reading Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy.
Yeah.
This year, I'm going to start the first book of Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive. I think it's 1,000 pages.
Dude.
And then the books get progressively longer after that. Book 3 is like 2 phone books taped together.
The editor just gave up.
Yeah, they're like, you know what, Brandon, I can't read this many words.
I finished it. I assume it's fine.
You know what? You're not the only author I'm responsible for. Anyway.
Well, 2 people apparently resolved to support the Hero's Journey podcast because we have 2 new patrons this month.
Wow.
Both Boys React and Chris Bodeker. Thank you so much for your support.
Yeah, thank you. You have joined our pantheon of demigod patrons that include John Peterson Jr., Dean Ethington, and Scott Sanford. As your number grows, you must vie for devout followers using guile, chicanery, and shenanigans.
Those are 3 great words. On January 25, the Chinese New Year welcomed the Year of the Rat. To commemorate, we selected 3 films featuring rats and asked our patrons to vote on which we would cover for this episode.
It ended up being a tie between The Secret of NIMH and Ratatouille. So we talked about how to resolve the tie and decided that because Ratatouille is more likely to appear on another poll in the future, maybe we'll do Pixar movies or something like that, that we would cast the deciding vote for The Secret of NIMH this time.
The Secret of NIMH is based on Robert C. O'Brien's 1971 novel, Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of NIMH, which was awarded the prestigious Newbery Medal in 1972. The film was produced by a team of Disney animation defectors led by Don Bluth and Gary Goldman, who had left to pursue the project after Disney rejected it.
At the time of its release, The Secret of NIMH was the largest animated feature film produced by a non-Disney company, with its $7 million budget, which, according to the producer Gary Goldman, was a shoestring.
Yeah, compared to the Disney film budgets, I'm sure.
Yeah. The box office gross started slowly. It was the opposite of what we see. Usually a film is released and its opening weekend is the biggest.
Right.
Generally.
Yeah.
Sometimes the second weekend, but generally it peters out. The Secret of NIMH was exactly the opposite. It had a minimal opening of less than $1 million in the box office, and its final week it earned more than $6 million. It ramped up, which I thought was weird.
Yeah.
But get this. This is probably why. It shared the theater simultaneously with E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Rocky III, Poltergeist, Blade Runner, Tron, and Conan the Barbarian.
Holy crap.
All were in the theater at the same time. So, yeah, no wonder Secret of NIMH got lost in the shuffle there.
That kind of scheduling doesn't happen anymore. Like, movie studios don't do that, where they pile them up like that.
Right. They strategically separate them because they don't want this to happen. A studio will move sometimes the release of a film if they find out that it's going to butt up against the new Star Wars movie. They're like, okay,
Man.
well, let's not release our sci-fi movie on the same weekend because no
Right.
one's going to go see it. The Secret of NIMH ultimately ended up with a $14.6 million box office take after 6 weeks in the theater. So not a resounding success, but like so many other films, The Secret of NIMH did find a big following and fan base after the release of home video, the profits of which have surpassed the box office take.
I'm sure that's how I first saw it.
On home video?
Yeah, because I would have been like 6 years old when it came out in the theater, and that was too creepy a movie to see at age 6.
Although it is a G-rated film.
Yeah.
Which Don Bluth and Gary Goldman were surprised that they received a G rating because there are those creepy elements.
Yeah.
They expected a PG rating, and they actually think that the G rating caused potential adult audiences not to go to the film because they didn't want to go see a kid's film.
The film features the voice talents of Derek Jacobi as Nicodemus, Elizabeth Hartman as Mrs. Brisby, Dom DeLuise as Jeremy, the clumsy crow, and John Carradine as the Great Owl, Peter Strauss as Justin, and the gravel-voiced Paul Shinar as Jenner.
He's got a great voice.
Yeah, he does. Eagle-eyed viewers may also recognize the voice.
Excuse me, eagle-eared viewers.
Eagle-eared. Wow. Do eagles have extraordinary hearing?
I don't know. I was playing on the phrase.
Eagle-eared.
That your brain actually corrected.
That's right.
As you
Eagle-eared viewers may also recognize the voice of Tom Hatton as Farmer Fitzgibbons.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, I would watch Tom Hatton host the Popeye show on KTLA Channel 5.
Wow.
On, I think it was Sunday mornings, early in the morning. It was 6, maybe 7 in the morning on Sunday. I would be the first one up in the house. I would sneak into the kitchen, make myself a early morning snack that usually consisted of slices of cheddar cheese and...
It's a very mousy snack.
Right? Yeah,
Or rat snack.
I just realized that.
The rat snack.
And sometimes chocolate chip cookies if those were available. So very healthy morning childhood.
I miss
had
eating
there.
like that with impunity.
Yeah, good times. But I digress.
Yeah.
The Secret of NIMH is also the feature film debut of those lovable scamps Shannon Doherty and Will Wheaton.
Yes. That's so
I
great.
had no idea.
I know. Isn't that great?
I thought that was great. I'm like, Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
Shannon Doherty are in this?
Yeah.
What?
One other note about casting, Timmy is played by Ian Freed, who also appeared on a little show you might remember called The Wonder Years.
Who was he in The Wonder Years?
Which he was Nerd. That was his character name.
Nerd.
Yes, he was Nerd.
Okay.
On like 2 episodes.
Okay.
And I just bring that up because we haven't had a Jeff Actor moment in a long
gosh.
time. No, the Wonder Years.
So you have 1 degree of separation to Ian Freed.
That's right.
Actually, which gives you 2 degrees of separation to Will Wheaton.
I love it. Anyway, so
Which gives you 3 degrees of separation to Patrick Stewart.
Oh, wow.
Gosh, you've got... Oh, we need to draw this map.
Oh, yeah. We could put that on the
Side
website.
project.
Anyway, The Wonder Years was my first network TV appearance. Okay, let's escape this cage of introduction and venture into the rose bush because it's time to discover the secret of NIMH. Act 1 begins with the ordinary world, the world of common day, where we see our main character in their status quo normal life. Mrs. Jonathan Brisby is a widowed mouse living in a cinder block house in a field on the Fitzgibbon farm with her 3 kids, Brenda, Gordy, and her youngest, Timmy, who is bedridden. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Brenda and Gordy. Oh,
Sorry.
jeez.
Sorry. And it's 4 kids, right?
Oh, there's 4 kids.
There's 4
there's
kids.
little Cynthia.
That's right. So, Brenda, Gordy, Cynthia, and young Timmy, who is bedridden with fever.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Oh, we're going to diverge already?
Oh, no. Oh, well, is there more that you feel is the...
Well, she goes... Are you saying that her journey to visit Mr. Ages is to get medicine for Timmy, that's the call to adventure?
No.
Okay.
No, but so this is... I think sometimes we get caught up on this. We don't have to squash every plot point into one of these sections. Her ordinary world, her world of common day is what I just described. That's where she lives. That's her situation.
Great. All right, then.
Man, it's a testy act
The
1.
next segment is the call to adventure. where the hero is presented with a challenge that renders them unable to continue living in the comfort of their cinder block house in the field.
So comfy.
It looked comfy.
It did. It seemed
There's like
bigger
furniture.
it was like bigger on the inside than it was on the outside, right?
It's a TARDIS.
Exactly.
She lives in a TARDIS house.
Extra dimensional cinder block.
Right. So Auntie Shrew, played by Hermione Baddeley, who I think gives one of the best vocal performances in the movie.
She's having a blast.
It's cartoony,
Yeah.
but it is so entertaining.
Yeah.
That is the comedy relief that I enjoyed. I didn't really care for other comedy relief that we'll talk about later, but I thought Auntie Shrew was wonderful with her. She sounded like a British nanny.
Yeah.
She was just fantastic.
Why me? That I alone should be responsible for the welfare of the entire field is monstrous. Brisby!
So Auntie Shrew is the herald
Yes.
archetype
Yes.
of this story. The herald is the character who announces the coming of trouble.
Yeah.
So she tells Mrs. Brisby that the frost is off the ground and it is time to move.
Yeah. It's moving day.
For some reason, the mice move back and forth every 6 months from a home in the forest. That's their summer home.
Right.
And then every year they move back into the field for some reason. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? I don't.
Yeah.
I never understood that, and it wasn't explained in the novel either. But anyway, it's moving day,
Yeah.
and as you noted, Timothy is sick. He has pneumonia, and
Right.
he can't be moved.
Right. Can I just jump in really good? We sort of glossed over this. When the frost is gone, that means the plow is coming. And so if they don't move.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, if they don't move, they're
Absolutely.
mouse guts.
Right. And I think I may have stepped on the refusal of the call.
Oh, I don't. Oh, okay. Well, should we move
But
on?
if you don't have any thing to correct me on Call to Adventure, then let's jump into the next seg.
Which is refusal of the call. Confronted with fear of the unknown, our hero refuses to engage in the adventure. Sometimes this energy is expressed from within the hero, and sometimes from without. Timothy is so sick, as you mentioned, that he can't be moved. That's a sort of refusal from without. That is a
Right.
condition of the world that makes entering the adventure harder and unlikely. Mrs. Frisbee, with the help of Auntie Shrew, faces down the horror of this fast approaching rumbling plow and sabotages the plow.
Right.
Like these mice and Shrew,
Right.
and Auntie Shrew, who we sort of irritated with because she's so henpecking right at the beginning, she jumps in and like chews the brake line, or it's not the brake line, but
I think it's the fuel line.
the fuel line. So anyway,
It's a good thing she's an automotive mechanic because
right. Yeah, she has experience with. Okay, so stopping the plow is refusal because they're literally saying we're not going to move. We're going to alter the circumstances so we do not have to move on moving day.
Oh. Okay.
What did you have?
Well, I mean, Timothy being too ill to be moved on
Okay.
moving day.
Just from
That's
without.
the refusal. It's like, it's
Interesting.
moving day, the plow is coming, it's time to move, but we can't.
Interesting.
I saw the sabotage of the plow as, I guess, I was going to say it was one of the first tests, but I guess it could fall into refusal. It's just a reaction to, the plow has come early,
Right.
and we have to stop it or everybody dies.
Right.
I'll allow it.
Okay. So this is as good a time as any for you to help me debunk this. So, because I haven't read the novel since I was 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
There are the rats who have been experimented on, and then there are like mice and shrew. But they can all talk, and the bird can talk, and the owl can talk. So
Yeah. The only... Sorry, go ahead.
So I was just like, so clearly in this world, animals can talk, but the rats, they like their eyes glow and they don't get older. And
Right.
and like what? I didn't
Right.
quite understand.
The rats and Jonathan Brisby
Right.
and Mr. Ages are the only ones that received the experiments.
Right.
Mrs. Brisby and the kids, and well, the kids actually have part of Jonathan's DNA now, so they're actually special too. But
Right.
Mrs. Brisby, Jeremy, Auntie Shrew, the Great Owl, they're all just regular animals.
Oh, so we should say, for those of you who are listening and haven't read the book or seen the movie, the rats of NIMH are these rats who have been experimented on by some sort of institution and then released. And so...
No, they escaped.
They escaped. So that's why they have special powers. I just was unclear what made the rats specialer besides that they don't age. Anyway.
Well, that's actually something that, I mean, we'll get into that later as we reach that point, but there's significant differences between the film and the novel. And because I also just read the novel,
yes,
I think it's vastly superior to the film. Because it makes it very clear why the rats and Mr. Ages and Jonathan were so special.
Do the rats still have glowy eyes in the book?
No.
Okay.
No. That's not part of it. It's they received these experiment. They were one of 3 groups of rats that received these experimental injections. They were part of Group A. There was Group B that also received some injections, but of a different formula. And then Group C was the control group. They just received like placebo injections.
I see.
So Group C aged and died normally, like normal rats, which have very short lifespans. Group B, this is all in the novel, by the way. None of this is in the film.
Right.
Group B aged and died, but at a slightly slower rate than they should have. And then Group A, the one that includes Jenner and Justin and Nicodemus, their aging appears to have completely stopped almost.
And they
become highly intelligent. In the novel, they are taught to read. The scientists are in the novel, the scientists are described as very careful. They're very kind to the rats. It's not this
evil, scary, dystopian place.
Right, the way that it's described in the film. The experience at NIMH is also a third of the novel.
Right.
And it's a 2-minute flashback sequence in the film.
Yeah.
There's no magic in the book. All of their abilities are the result of these medical experiments. And they were taught to read, and then they could read the signs on their cages that say to open, lift, lever. And so that's how they escaped.
And NIMH is National Institute of Mental Health, right?
Mental health, yeah.
Okay, so thank you for that. We got off course.
Sidetrack.
Yeah.
All right, so next segment is Supernatural Aid, or Meeting with the Mentor. This is where the hero receives counsel on how to operate in the special world. Auntie Shrew recommends that Mrs. Brisby go visit the Great Owl.
That's
because
awesome.
He will know what to do.
Yes.
Mrs. Brisby rejects the idea because owls eat mice. So she's like, I'm not going to walk into the lion's den, essentially. Right. And Auntie Shrew shows a little bit of mentor energy when she says, show some courage.
I didn't remember that Professor McGonagall was in this book, but it's a great crossover moment.
She says, show some courage. We're fighting for Timmy's life. That is the first element of mentor energy that Mrs. Brisby receives. And then there's the Great Owl, who tells her actually how to proceed.
Go to the rats.
But I don't know any rats.
In the rose bush.
Oh, yes. Near the farmhouse.
Go there. Ask for Nicodemus.
Nicodemus? But how can they help?
They must move your house to the lee of the stone.
I agree. There's quite a bit of mentor energy in this book. For sure, Auntie Shrew and the Great Owl, who lives in a terrifying den with a giant spider and spider. Like, I was freaked out watching this. And I remember being freaked out as a kid. Like, why does the Great Owl have to be so terrifying and creepy? And again, the glowing, the owl has the crazy glowing eyes too. So I was like, is the owl? Did they experiment on owls? What the hell is going on?
Have you ever seen an owl at night?
Yeah, but if it's inside and there's no light shining on its eyes do not glow. So it was clearly not
true.
It was just a creepy.
I think that was just an artistic element to make the owl look more frightening. Because actually, John Carradine doesn't play the character as a frightening character.
Right. It's just
if you take the visuals out of it, he sounds like an old grandpa telling you, giving you some advice.
So the other mentors there's obviously Nicodemus at one point becomes a mentor. And I think also Mr. Aegis has some mentor qualities.
One difference, again, here between book and film is in the novel, it's Jeremy the Crow who recommends Mrs. Frisbee go see the great owl. And like in the film, he Ubers her there. So that is similar, but it's Jeremy who actually says, let's go see the great owl. All us birds go see the great owl when we need help.
So you bring up a really good character, Jeremy, who is, we'll discuss allies later, but the thing that struck me about Jeremy, it's Dom DeLuise, the comedian, who plays this funny, awkward crow who's trying to build a nest because he wants to fall in love, but he's clumsy, so he keeps ending up tying himself up and getting tangled. And Mrs. Brisby saves him at the beginning of the movie, and then that's how they become friends. Do you remember a little movie in 1989 called The Little Mermaid and a bird called Scuttle, the seagull? He is a total Jeremy ripoff. He's this funny, awkward, friendly bird. And I'm watching this going, oh my God, Scuttle is a total ripoff of this character.
How interesting. I did not remember Scuttle.
It's pretty note for note.
How funny.
Because he's always, tripping himself up and being awkward and getting in the way.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeremy spends most of this film tied up in some way.
He's got hey, don't shame his kink.
I'm not.
So that brings us to crossing the threshold.
The lee of the stone.
Lee of the stone.
The lee of the stone.
So the hero must... a little punchy this Sunday. The hero must pass a barrier to enter the special world, and this crossing represents the hero's commitment to taking on the adventure. So accompanied by her spastic avian ally, Mrs. Brisby travels to the home of the Rats of NIMH. There is a literal threshold crossing as she enters the rose bush through a small door made of leaves and twigs, and then it closes behind her. That is the crossing of the threshold.
Oh, interesting. So the tree door is the crossing of the threshold in this movie, but not in Nightmare Before Christmas. Huh.
Yes, that's correct.
Huh.
Yeah. Because there's actually been a call to adventure and a meeting the mentor at that point, unlike in Nightmare.
But, don't you dare.
I'm just
we always talk about how...
I'm just kicking you when you're down.
You are.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I had said that when Mrs. Brisby crosses the threshold into the Great Owl's domain, that is what I said was the crossing of the first threshold, because she was frightened to do that because mice are prey of owls. And so she was walking into a very dangerous place. And there is that element of her stepping off of the branch and into his hollowed out tree trunk with, like you said, the giant spider, well, giant to her. That's what I said was crossing of the first threshold.
I guess I saw this as I was analyzing it. I realized this is an action adventure film. Almost every stage of this journey has a 3-act action sequence. I mean, the stopping of the plow as a refusal of the call is one thing.
Yeah.
The meeting with the mentor has its own beginning, middle, and end with a threat. Everything is jacked up to a level of life or death, or at least perceived life or death.
Yeah.
But that's when to me, the meeting with the mentor sequence, while they gave it a 3-act structure, that was still, man, that's the slot for meeting with the mentor. And when she goes to visit the Rats of NIMH, I saw that as, okay, this is her actually taking the step of, I've had the instruction from the mentor on what I need to do. Now I'm actually going to do it. And I also think that really nicely launches us into the second act of the film. From a perspective, from the typical 3-act film perspective, they really do fade to black, fade up, it's act 2. They really do that in this film.
All right. That concludes Act 1 of this discussion.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be back. We have refilled our water glasses, and now it's time for side quests.
Oh, yeah, side quests.
Side quests. Dan, in what side quests have you engaged?
I did a ton. I've been concentrating on writing, trying to get those muscles back in shape. And man, it's been a struggle. I've been enjoying it, except for this last article that I'm writing about the Paolo Bacigalupi novel, The Water Knife, which I finished. It is a near future take on what could potentially happen to the American Southwest when the states begin warring over water rights.
Oh, God.
The main character, Angel, spelled Angel. I read it as Angel the entire book until, like, in the last 50 pages, somebody says that it's actually spelled or pronounced Angel. So
Hashtag
anyway.
white privilege.
Oh, dude, come on.
Sorry.
Wow. Jesus. Although his last name is Velasquez, so I probably should have known. But anyway, so he is the titular Water Knife, and his role as a spy / saboteur / assassin working for the Southern Nevada Water Authority, which is a real thing.
Wow.
Ask your parents,
okay,
who live in Vegas, right? Their water is controlled by the Southern Nevada Water Authority.
Wow.
And that organization's job is to look for new sources of water and acquire the rights so that Vegas and the rest of Southern Nevada have water.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's real. That's not the book.
Makes sense.
That's actually real. So this character, so what has happened now is that water has continued to become scarce, as it is now, and state national guards have built border fences, and there are refugees from states like Texas that have completely run out of water, and refugees from Texas are trying to be smuggled, and they use coyotes and everything to get into states that do have water.
Wow.
Wonderful novel. Highly recommend it. I will say one thing, that usually I have some kind of beverage with me while I'm reading. I wanted nothing but water while I was reading The Water Knife.
Huh.
It made me feel thirsty. I finished 3 video games that I was in the middle of. I had gotten to a point where I had progressed partway through, and then I had to stop playing those games because I just didn't have time anymore.
Right.
So Dying Light, I finished.
Oh, God, that game is terrifying. I stopped playing because it's too
know.
scary.
I know.
I tried playing it and, like, replaced the scary music with, like, Morrissey or, like, Boingo Boingo. Too terrifying.
Mad Max, I finished that game. That was a game made by Warner Brothers. They released it shortly after Mad Max Fury Road, the film, came out. And it's very closely tied to that film.
Is there
really fun. But again, water.
Yeah.
The water is a huge element of that game. And then Watch Dogs 2, which I talked about several episodes ago. Your character is a hacker.
Right.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
But he was such a nice guy that I couldn't ever steal cars and commit crimes and things as this character. But now that I'm done, it is a really fun and interesting and almost prescient look at our current society and culture's dependence on big technology and how all of these companies are interconnected and the data they use is so vulnerable.
Wow.
There are all of the companies in the game are fictional, but they're all based, instead of Google, it's Noodle. Instead of Facebook, it's Invite. There's a privately owned space company called Galilei instead of SpaceX, and
those are all better names.
All of these
real thing. Chirper.
So all of these so the point of the game is that you and your fellow hackers, you're all white hat hackers. These are the good guys, the people who engage in hacking activity, but for the greater good. They expose all of these criminal activities that these companies are engaged in, influencing political elections through technological cheating and stuff like that. So that's what the game ended up being about. And it was really enjoyable. I just finished it a couple days ago.
It's crazy how science fiction has never felt more relevant to me in terms of not so much fantasy about what might happen, but warnings about what is happening. These day after tomorrow stories that are... It makes you wonder how much of this is already going on because there's not a lot of transparency. You know, these technological advances that could be so dangerous are happening behind closed doors at corporations who have no interest in sharing it with the public. It's kind of like in the 50s and 60s, we didn't know what the government was developing, you know? And now it's like we don't know what hundreds of thousands of corporations are developing and who could unleash what. And anyway.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And the fact that those corporations now have political power.
Yeah.
What about you? Which side quests have you undertaken?
I've only seen one film. Oh, no. Well, we haven't talked about Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, I saw movies too. But go.
So I saw Rise of Skywalker once in 2D and once in 3D. And I just...
Oh, I don't care for 3D movies.
It doesn't add anything.
That does nothing for me.
Yeah, I felt the same way. But I really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed the new Star Wars films. I've taken them for what they are.
Good.
But my biggest takeaway was they did stuff with the Force that we've only heard about. I mean, all through the original trilogy, references are made to the amazing things that can be done with the Force, but we really don't get to see much of that. Like the most surprising thing really is like Darth Vader hurling stuff at Luke while he's using a lightsaber.
Right.
But this movie, I kept getting surprised by what happened with the Force, and my inner 8-year-old was like, yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Part of me was like, wait, this was possible all along. How come we're only just now seeing this? But it was all new.
Well, Luke's mentors kept dying before he could learn cool stuff.
Yeah.
So I saw Marriage Story.
I watched that last night.
Oh, I loved it.
Really?
I was so inspired. I think
that's a difficult movie to love.
Yeah, I mean it's very sad.
Yeah,
but
it's really a divorce story.
Yeah, but it's to me it's about what really happens and how you go on. And as an actor, it was such a juicy. It just made you want to be in that movie. Adam Driver is exceptional in that movie. He is vulnerable and real, and he's not performing or dancing, and he's just it's so flawed. And Scarlett Johansson did a great job. And everyone in that movie, down to like the bellboy, is a massive A-list celebrity. Alan Alda, Ray Liotta, Laura Dern. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
And then books. I read The Night Fire, the latest Michael Connelly. His best yet. I loved it.
Really?
Because it's got
all three of them,
It's
right?
got Bosch Ballard and Mickey Haller.
Yeah.
So it's great. I listened to The Elegant Universe by Brian Greene, which is about superstring theory. I read.
Did you understand it?
I read half of it, and the last half of that half, I did not understand anything. It goes so deep.
Yeah.
And he's trying to describe things that really are only describable mathematically. So I quit halfway through, but I didn't call it a DNF. I gave myself credit because I stuck it far past it. Just sounded like might as well have been in German for all I could read. I read Pride and Prejudice. Which I found very hard to get into, partially because of the language. It's very Victorian sounding. And then at some point, I just went, it's like Shakespeare. I don't have to understand every sentence. I can kind of get the gist.
Yeah.
And also, I really wasn't getting that it was an ironic sort of poking fun at romance novel. And so once I got into the satirical element and stopped, I loved it. And I really got into it.
That's cool.
And then I read, and I'm going to get laughter on this, I read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Maria Kondo. And I know you've read this, and I read your blog posts, and I totally understand where you're coming from, but I got so inspired by this book.
That's great. A lot of people have. I just thought it was kind of nonsense. But
I was standing in the Strand bookstore in New York, and I picked it up, and I started reading it. I'm like, I love this book. And then I put it down. I was like, I'm not gonna get involved in that. But I listened to it, and I have been applying those techniques to clean up my life. And the stress reduction has been so unexpectedly amazing. Because I spend a lot of time in my house because I work from home. And the clutter was just reaching. We were kind of clutter bugs before we had kids. And the kids were just like a grenade of clutter. And I didn't realize how tense it was making me. I couldn't be anywhere. And I've done my office, my bedroom, and
the garage.
80% of the kitchen. The garage has been a Band-Aid project. But anyway.
I saw the pictures you posted on Twitter about it, and I was inspired.
Yeah.
I started cleaning up things in here because of your photos.
I got rid of so much stuff. I mean, 50 books, I want to say 8 to 10 bags of donated stuff. Even the drawers that it's not like you walk in and you see the difference. The drawers the stuff you can't see is organized.
But you know it's organized.
And I know it's organized. I know where everything is, but it's had this psychological impact to me of things that I was holding on to, old t-shirts, old like pins and badges and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel so much lighter not having that stuff in my house. Anyway, I dived in. I watched the whole Netflix series.
Wow.
I'm like all about it. I'm just like, feed me with a spoon.
Indoctrination.
I'm that's my new Depeche Mode theme. Anyway, I'm 100% on board the Maria, and she's just so charming. And the book is so much more brutal than the series. She's super polite and sweet. And in the book, it's like, I went to my client's house and I opened the drawer and I gasped at the horror within. It's like she's.
Well, I wonder how much of that was the translation.
I don't know. It's pretty clear that she's being, like, and then there's little autobiographical things. Like apparently when she was a girl, she would be so frustrated with the excess stuff that her family members kept that she would steal it and hide it in the back of the closet. And if the person didn't realize it for like 60 days, she would throw it away. And then when it's like, hey, have you seen my green jacket? She'd be like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. That's kind of the stuff that turned me off.
Oh, really?
Of the book is that at one point she was talking about in the bathroom, she picked up the shampoo bottle and there was like a ring underneath the shampoo bottle and she collapsed in sobbing. I'm like, oh my God, really? This is you're going to have a temper tantrum over the soap scum ring that's underneath the shampoo bottle. And so she started, after every shower, she wipes off all of the shampoo and the conditioner, takes all of those things, dries them off, and puts them in a drawer.
I related. So, like, I have an electric toothbrush, and if you sit it in the charger, after about 30 days, this sort of ring forms around the bottom of the toothbrush. And I really related to all the little gross things.
Yeah.
If your house is cluttered and you have that stuff going on, you just feel like everything needs to be burned. And when your house is uncluttered, you just go, oh, I have time to fix that. Anyway.
I gotcha.
I loved it. We're going to finish our coffee, and we'll be back with Act 2.
Act 2 begins with the road of trials, or tests allies and enemies. Having crossed the threshold, the hero meets allies, makes enemies, and must pass a series of tests to prove their worthiness. Allies, Mr. Ages, we've already met. Another ally is Jeremy. He is a trickster archetype, the comedy relief.
Yeah.
I did not like Jeremy in
No.
the movie. It was over the top. He was there for comic relief to the kids. I didn't think he was necessary at all. I much preferred the novel version of Jeremy, where he's just a good guy. He is a young crow, but he's not trying to build a love nest or anything. He does like sparkly stuff, but he's not the goofball that he is in the film.
It was almost like they got someone to do a Dom DeLuise impression, because it was so Dom DeLuise. Like,
oh yeah, it was some Dom DeLuise ass Dom DeLuise.
Yeah,
for sure. Auntie Shrew, who we've already discussed, and then the rats.
Yes.
Enemies, Dragon the cat, which is a great name.
Oh,
because it's
Slay
for
the
that cat.
dragon.
Yeah. The plow and the farmer, and then Jenner, the seditious rat.
Yes.
Seditious? Is
I don't
that
know.
the right word?
It sounds great. Yeah, because he's trying
the rebellious rat. He
Yeah.
doesn't want the rats to leave the Rose Bush and go to Thorn Valley. So he's
basically Mitch McConnell as a rat.
Oh, okay. And that's a big difference in the novel as well. Jenner is not. There is no villain in the novel.
Yeah, he's just like has a legitimate outlook of let's stay here. It's too dangerous.
Yeah, he doesn't understand why they should leave and go to Thorn Valley. So he and some other rats they just leave.
Do you remember in high school in English lit? You would talk about man versus himself, man versus nature as the main themes of literature. Do you remember having that conversation?
Yeah.
So, first of all, horribly sexist, because I'm sure now it's like person versus person versus themselves. Anyway, the forces of nature were an enemy here. The coming of spring was an enemy because it meant moving and uprooting your life. the inevitability of the plow, and Timmy's illness. Really, the circumstances of nature were a force, even without Jenner and the rats. They were forcing Mrs. Brisby to contend with life and death.
Okay.
So I saw that as an enemy.
I didn't, because it was just something that they deal with all the time.
Well, sure, everyone in every story has to contend with the forces of nature, but this story wouldn't have happened if it weren't for those things. It was a survival story in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Tests. I think Jeremy is a test in and of himself. Just because
For you as a viewer.
Yeah.
Can you keep watching this
Just
film?
because he's so distracting. He's disruptive. That's the word I'm looking for.
I think
he's
distractive is a great combination of those two things.
Yeah, but to the point where, as Mrs. Brisby says,
You're going to get us both killed.
because you're so loud. And he's squawking and he's just, well, that's a chicken, but he squawks and screams and flaps around and crashes about, and he's all interactions with him, except when he Ubers her to the Great Owl. Everything else, he is a test.
Yeah.
When she is looking for the entrance to the rose bush, I don't know why he's in this scene. He's not there to help her find the entrance to the rose bush. He's just there being an idiot. So she has to first calm him down and then sweet talks him, kind of charms him into, I need someone big and strong to watch after my children while I visit the rats.
Yeah.
And socially engineers him to fly off and go watch the children for her.
You're right.
That's a test.
I have no argument against that.
Second test is once she crosses the threshold into the rose bush, the encounter with Brutus.
Oh, God.
The threshold guardian archetype. I had forgotten the Brutus scene.
Yeah.
And how frightening it is.
Yeah.
As a child, I imagine I was probably terrified of Brutus. He's massive. He is a silhouette, a hulking silhouette. He's got this cape that kind of flaps around that makes him look even bigger. The only really, like, the most color in him is those glowing eyes that you've been citing.
Yeah.
And then he's got his, like, lightning pike that he keeps like stabbing at her. And so he chases her off.
Yeah, and it's not like, hey, turn back, you're not allowed here. It's like, I'm going to murder you.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is in the novel.
Just go away.
He is the threshold guardian. He's the guard, but he says, I've got orders not to let anybody in here, so you need to leave.
Yeah. Again, they made it. It's an action movie.
But it turns it into this frightening scene where her life is in danger.
Yeah, it's exciting for sure.
And the sound, I would say that the sound design in that scene when he strikes the ground with his pike and it crackles and very well done. I think another test, maybe, again, Jeremy, he needs a safe word. Auntie Shrew has him tied up. And
Oklahoma.
And he cannot convince her that he's there on Mrs. Brisby's request.
Yeah.
And then Auntie Shrew leaves, and the kids then are about to untie him, and then they tie him up again.
Yeah.
Because he can't convince them that he's there to help.
Right.
A little test for him that he fails miserably because he's Jeremy.
You nailed it earlier. He's a trickster. He helps a little, but he's mostly causing chaos, and he's a force that must be contained, and Auntie Shrew to the rescue.
Right.
And then he kind of tries to tempt the kids to release him, and they don't buy it either.
Right. Another test is the town hall meeting with the rats.
Yeah.
Trying to present the case of the Great Owl has told me to ask for your help to move the house. And that's when we discover that Jenner has ambitions.
I smell an opportunity.
What?
Maneuvers of this nature are dangerous. Accidents could happen.
Accident?
With Nicodemus out of the way, what's to stop us from taking over?
We also get a little more information. We've heard throughout when Mrs. Brisby speaks to someone new that they reference her late husband, Jonathan Brisby, and that he was somehow an important figure. And in this scene, we find out a little bit more about him. And in this sequence, a few minutes later, we find out that he was instrumental in helping the rats escape. And this is the loss of a parent or the loss of a spouse, the incompleteness of the hero is a recurring motif in the hero's journey. So in this case,
Yeah.
Mrs. Brisby isn't a whole person yet because her family is broken. She's missing her partner.
Right. And it bothered me. And maybe it's intentionally so, but it bothered me that she didn't seem to be her own entity. She was always Mrs. Jonathan Brisby.
Yeah.
And it's like that in the novel, too.
Yeah.
She's not her own person. She is what's left over
Yeah.
of Jonathan. And she has no idea why he is so important. Why does everybody know my husband?
Right. But then she finds out, right? Mm-hmm. And at the resolution of the movie, I felt like that chapter was over. She became her own woman. She became instrumental.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah. Blah, blah, blah.
We'll get there. All right. Any more tests? Because I think we're approaching the approach to the inmost cave at this point.
Oh.
So I'm gonna stop. But again, this is that very fluid area where there might be a test, but it's also the approach to the cave, and it's just this kind of nebulous spot. So I'm gonna pass it to you if you've got more tests or if you want to start the approach to the cave.
I do have.
Okay.
I don't think it quite ends there. I think her encounter with Nicodemus is part test, part delayed meeting with the mentor, because this is where she receives supernatural aid in the form of that medallion.
Right.
So he gives her this red stone embedded in a necklace that's somehow magic. He says,
When worn by one with a courageous heart, the stone glows red. It becomes a blinding radiance. Courage of the heart is very rare. The stone has a power when it's there.
this is also where, like you said, they, no pun intended, inject the background of the Rats of NIMH and how they escaped and what that was and who Jonathan was. And it happens very quickly, and it's almost a side note.
And it's a huge part of the novel.
Yeah.
It's a third of the page count.
Yeah. So that
is that adventure. And that I'm sorry to interrupt you, that sequence at NIMH, the National Institute of Mental Health, that is a hero's journey in and of itself.
One thing I did enjoy about this movie, watching it from the beginning, is unlike most children's movies where they really feed you all the knowledge to understand what's happening, you don't know what the hell's going on if you don't know anything about this. But the first 40 minutes of this movie are like, what is going on?
Yeah.
What you just really don't understand the circumstances. And I enjoyed that mystery element. But then when they sort of go, here's what happens.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that wasn't terribly elegant.
How did you feel about the magic element? Like, Nicodemus has force powers somehow.
Yeah.
Like that's not a result of the injections. No, none of the other rats have magic.
I was very confused watching this as an adult about what exactly the experiments did.
Yeah.
And who, like they say, who was experimented on. It was like the only mice that survived were Mr. Ages and Mr. Ages is the only one that survived. Jonathan's dead though.
Okay.
He died helping them rescue. So the only
No. Jonathan survived the escape. Jonathan died trying to drug Dragon the cat.
Oh, you're right. Duh. So, but in any case, the only living mouse left is Mr. Ages, and I can't really see what makes him different than the other talking mice. I mean, he's a chemistry set. Anyway, so what I saw as the end of this sequence before the beginning of the approach is Justin and Nicodemus row Mrs. Brisby to the exit of the rose bush, and then she volunteers to drug Dragon.
Right.
And that's the end of one phase and the beginning of the next. So that's what I saw as the borderline there.
Yeah. I think that is handled much better in the novel, because in the novel it's very clear that Jonathan died doing exactly what Mrs. Frisbee is about to do, what she's just volunteered to do. That's what got him killed.
Right. So she's completing
also
that cycle.
That's also why Mr. Ages now has a broken leg. He was trying to do that too the previous day, and that's how he got injured. So there's these two characters, these two special mice are seriously wounded and killed performing this task that Mrs. Brisby has now volunteered to do.
I'm glad you brought up the whole magic mice thing, because there is a sequel to this movie which is called Timmy to the Rescue or something.
Yeah, right.
But there's a third one in development,
What?
and it's called Magic Mice XL.
No.
And I can't wait to see.
No. There's the
Channing
door.
is
Get
gonna-
out. Get out of my...
Approach to the inmost cave. The hero reaches the edge of a dangerous place where the object of their quest is hidden. Jenner and his minor minion guy, whose name...
Sullivan.
Of course you remember it. They're planning to kill Nicodemus in a, quote, accident.
Right.
Right. So this is the approach to, whenever you cut to the villain's POV, it's sort of giving you tension about what's going to happen. Justin meets Mrs. Brisby in the crawl space under the farmhouse and shows her how to get in. And they say goodbye, and Mrs. Brisby crawls through the hole, literally approaching the inmost cave. So that's what I saw as the complete approach.
Which takes us to the ordeal where the hero faces the ultimate test, often risking death to overcome their worst fear and sometimes actually appearing to die. So Mrs. Brisby, armed with the sleeping powder provided by Mr. Ages, now has to race across the kitchen in a very short period of time. It's all set up. It's like a heist movie.
Yeah.
Right? It's like Ocean's
Yes.
11. Like,
Yes.
okay, so the guard is going to step away from the safe for 12 seconds, and in that time, you've got to get in there. So she rushes in there while Mrs. Fitzgibbon is going to let Dragon the cat in to eat his dinner. So she's got a very short period of time. She races across there, dumps it in, and on the way back...
Mom, don't let the cat in yet. I've got a mouse.
So now the hero appearing to die is the capture of Mrs. Brisby by the farmer's son, and Justin now has to abandon her for the time being, although he says, I'll come back for you.
He doesn't have to abandon her. He just does. Like,
Yeah.
he just does. Oh, I guess I can't help you now. Bye.
Yeah.
Like, he could have waited and then tried to help her escape when Dragon was gone, but he
Yeah.
just bails.
Well, maybe he had to run back to the rose bush, tell everybody what happened, get the effort going, so get all the rats over to her house to get that effort happening, and then he would come back for her.
I feel like you're really making excuses for Justin's cowardice in this scene. Just
Moving on.
so the reward, the seizing of the sword. Having faced their worst fear, the hero seizes the object of their quest. Mrs. Frisbee, who isn't a secret special magic mouse, figures out how to use the water dish to get out of the cage. And I loved it because that's, if you ever had a hamster or whatever, that's how those cages were made. That was a real puzzle. And I loved that sequence where she figures out she has to go underwater and hold her breath and use her strength and her cunning to get out. And I loved it because she was just, this is an ordinary mouse story. She's one of the regular mice. She's just an everyday mouse trying to protect her son. And she uses her determination, not any special ability.
Right.
To me, the reward here is that she overhears Farmer Fitzgibbons talking to Nim on the phone and finds out that they are coming tomorrow morning to get the rats. So she comes back, and that's her piece of nugget of information that she is using to save the rats. Hey, we have to go. They are
Right.
coming to get you.
Right.
So I saw that as the reward.
Yeah. Her little bungee jump was a big show of courage.
Yeah.
The rats are moving the house while all this is happening.
Right. That's the end of Act 2. We'll be back with booze.
I have a beverage for us,
Oh, good.
a themed beverage as per usual, but I wasn't able to get it in a container that I could reveal to you using our normal procedure of putting it in the secret bag and having
Weird.
you pull it out and be able to read the bottle or the can or whatever, and have that revelation moment of figuring out how it's connected. So
Okay. Couldn't you just wrap it in a sweatshirt?
yeah. Speaking of which, I do I
look
am
at
going
that.
to be using the tankard that you gave me from Critical Role as mine. You will have a glass chalice here. So
Hold on, I gotta finish my last swallow of coffee.
Oh,
Come
you're
on,
going to
yeah.
go from coffee to booze in under an hour?
in like under a minute, I think.
Okay, so what I have
Oh, damn.
is a growler
Yes, it is.
from Institution Ale Company in Camarillo, California.
Yes! Institution!
This beer is a Pilsner called Prescription Pills.
I love it.
Yeah. This beer company I first discovered in Santa Barbara. They have a tap room on Lower State Street. That's how I first learned about them. But when I thought about them for this, I Googled them and discovered that their brewery is actually in Camarillo, which is closer
Right.
to us here than the tap room. So it was half the drive, which was great. So it was only like an hour to get there instead of 2.
So you went there just to get
So
this
I went there
growler?
just to get, yeah, this is, I went on Thursday to pick this up.
awesome.
But they have a lot of other beers that are thematically named. They have Sedation, Restraint, Ratchet, Prescription Pills. So what we have here is the Pilsner.
I love it.
So I'm going to...
Oh, yes. I should describe while you're pouring. This is a bulbous brown glass growler with one of those cork things that's attached by a metal doohickey. So you push the lever up to help the beer escape from its bottle.
Just Google growler and watch a YouTube video on it, and you'll
This
be able
is
to see it.
not the typical growler, though. It's
Yeah, it is.
no.
Yeah, it is. This is the official California craft brew growler that you can take to any participating craft brewery in California, and they will fill this. Most breweries have their own branded growlers, but this is a generic one that I can take anywhere.
I like it.
If you do have a branded growler, if you put opaque tape over all of the branding, you can take it to any California craft brewer and they will fill it. You don't have to buy their own.
Pro tip.
If you don't know that already. All right, let's pour this thing.
Thanks for the tip.
Quit talking about it. Dan, I don't know how to pour. I'm going to have to get off mic to pour this because I can't
Okay.
do it delicately.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a very convenient. Careful.
Yeah, it's going to be
Oof.
oops.
See, that is a terrible vessel for pouring beer from.
Well, you're supposed to just drink directly from it, from the 64-ounce. I'm joking. It's not.
It's the gargantuan gulp from Leisure Suit Larry. Oh my gosh, he's pouring it. Oh, wow. He's pouring it into the glass chalice for me. And this is a gorgeous Pilsner. It is pale yellow with a nice, thick, foamy head. And the bubbles are sort of clinging to the side of the glass and then drifting upward. It's just almost hypnotic. I would go after this even if there were a scary, glowy-eyed rat with an electric pike trying to stop me. This is beautiful, Dan. Did you pour yourself
Yeah.
some into your
I did.
tankard?
I poured it into my metal tankard from Critical Role that you gave me for Christmas. So
You can't
I
see the
can't
color.
I can't see the color, but if I look down on it, there's big, thick, foamy head.
Yeah, this looks great. Let's take a sniff.
Kind of fruity.
Yeah, it's got that Pilsner base, but there's something.
Like a little bit of green apple almost is what I'm getting.
Yeah, that's a perfect description of what it is. It's tart. It's slightly tart. All right, let's clinky,
Yeah.
drinky.
Cheers.
I need another sip before I can decide what that is.
That is a very clean Pilsner.
That is refreshing.
Yeah.
Like if it were a hot day
Yeah.
and you didn't want to drink a crappy Bud Light, but you didn't want to drink like a porter or an IPA, I would
Yes.
absolutely drink several of these.
Yeah. And I will say, very inexpensive. That 64-ounce growler,
Yeah.
$14.
Wow.
Yeah.
For a craft beer?
Yeah.
Not counting the 2-hour round trip that you
Well,
had to make
there was that, but I think that is a really
for a
great price.
a gallon of craft beer, basically.
Yeah. And this is so good. I'm glad I got a growler instead of a crowler. A crowler is a 32-ounce can.
Oh, okay.
It's huge and it's unwieldy. It's as unwieldy as the growler is.
And you got to drink it all at once because you can't
Yeah, you can't reseal it. It's like a regular pop top can, so you got to drink all 32 ounces. So it's a shareable, or exactly, it's 2 pints. So I generally drink 2 pints.
My favorite thing about this is the head is so creamy and frothy that it gives me a little beer mustache. Which I've never had a Pilsner that did that.
It's been a long time since I've had a beer mustache. Yeah,
that's really good.
So good.
And I'm not a Pilsner guy. Like I'd never order a Pilsner at a bar, and this is
generally not. In the summer, I go for IPAs, but lately I've been doing darker ales, just because it's like the weather seems right for it.
Yeah,
when it's colder.
Yeah,
the brewery in Camarillo is really neat. You walk in, and I thought I was in the wrong place because I walked in. Oh, of course, the storefront, the front of the building says Institution Ale Company, so I knew I was at the right address. But I walk in, and it's as big as this little area that we're in right now. It's a tiny little place, and there's some t-shirts on the wall for purchase and some branded goblets and things. And then there's a counter, like that's as long as the short kitchen counter here.
Wow.
And with some tap handles. And there's one person standing there. I was like, oh, I thought this was like a full brewery because there's like pizza on the website. You can order pizzas. I'm like, where is this, like pizza to go, or how does it? Like, oh no, go through that door there, and there's a door that's closed. There's no window. You open that door and you walk out into the brewery, the whole operation, and there's like a little pathway that takes you around the outside.
Wow.
Of their brewing operation, and
wow.
It smells so good in there. It really does. There are some breweries I've been to where the actual facility, I don't like the smell of the grains, and it's just like too much. For some reason, the day I went, and maybe it was just the day I went, but it smelled absolutely delicious.
That's awesome.
And then you walk past all of that into the brewery's tap room, and that's got a huge bar and dozens of tables and seats, and there's a patio out back. But it was a neat experience.
That's awesome. That's really good.
Good prescription pills?
Yeah.
I could get addicted. Act 3 begins with the road back, where the hero is pursued by vengeful forces disturbed when they seized the sword. I had put the capture of Mrs. Brisby by the farmer's son as part of the vengeful force because she has succeeded in drugging the cat but then is captured, so that's a little bit of a vengeful force, the enemy energy keeping the hero from escaping. Your eye is twitching, so you don't agree with that, and that's fine.
Well, because I think her captivity is an echo of the rat's captivity. It's the worst possible outcome, so I saw that as definitely the ordeal.
Well, I put it in the ordeal as well, but I think it maybe has a double...
Okay, that road back energy.
Also, we agree that it's part of the reward, her learning the information about the people from NIMH coming in the morning to destroy the rats. I see that also as a element of vengeful force coming to destroy.
Right.
But I think the most appropriate representation of vengeful force is Jenner executing his plan to assassinate Nicodemus.
Yeah. Mrs. Brisby stands up and warns everyone, hey, NIMH's coming. We have to get out of here. And Jenner just slaps the crap out of her.
Knocks her.
He's twice the size of her, just slaps her across the room. And at that point, it's like, in case you didn't know Jenner was a bad guy, he just...
Right.
He doesn't try to convince people, he kind of says, oh, she's crazy. But instead of being his charming, normal self, he just slaps the crap out of her. That's why I say he's kind of Mitch McConnell. Because at that point, he doesn't make any kind of attempt to hide who he is. He's just like, nope, we're not going. Smack.
Right.
And if he wasn't animated as such a mustache twirling, toothy grinned guy, you might really think he's fighting for what he perceives as the safety of the colony.
And that, I don't know that we've really explained that. The rats have a plan to leave the rose bush and go into the wilderness, into Thorn Valley, and be self-sufficient because right now They are stealing food, they're stealing electricity, they're stealing running water from Farmer Fitzgibbon, and they feel ashamed about that.
Right.
They want to be self-sufficient because now, and this wasn't very well illustrated in the film, but it is in the novel, it's because of their heightened intelligence that they now have this moral quandary.
Right.
Of it's not right that we're doing what we're doing, so we're going to go somewhere where we can be on our own. And Jenner doesn't want that life. He wants to continue living the easy life. So Nicodemus dies as the house that was being moved to its new location using ropes and pulleys falls and crushes Nicodemus. Again,
terrifying for children. This scary-ass, glowing-eyed magic rat. Now, and you see a leg and like this crumpled body crushed under cinder block.
Yeah.
That is a shocking image for a children's movie. When people die in children's movies, they just disappear, or you see them lying, serene on the ground. But this guy's crushed under a cinder block. That's horrifying. Meanwhile, Jenner and Justin have a duel because the rats have swords. I don't know. We haven't seen a forge. We haven't seen that they have smelting capabilities, but they have rat-sized swords, and now they are having a duel.
Yep.
Now, it's a pretty cool duel. Rats with swords dueling. Never seen that. Are there dueling rats in the book with swords?
No.
Okay. So they have a duel.
This scene of moving the house goes by without a hitch.
Except for Nicodemus getting crushed?
No, there's none of that happens.
Oh, Nicodemus doesn't get crushed?
No, none of that happens.
Oh, God, what happens in the book?
The end of the book is completely different from this.
Okay.
From the film.
I got to know. What happens?
Okay, so they move the house successfully.
To the lee of the stone.
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 Is the lee of the stone a thing in the book?
Yes.
Okay.
The exciting end sequence is NIMH arriving the next day, and the rats have a plan to trick them into thinking that they have successfully annihilated the colony. NIMH's plan is to pump cyanide into the rose bush and gas all of the rats.
Jesus Christ.
The rats know that once that happens and the scientists begin digging out the rose bush, they will discover this very modern and sophisticated colony underneath the rose bush and know that, these are the intelligent rats. There hasn't been proof yet that the rats that are living on Mr. Fitzgibbon's farm are the ones that escaped from NIMH. But what gives them a clue is that there's a hardware store in town that had 7 rats trying to steal a motor get electrocuted to death. And the newspaper article about that incident gets the government's attention, and they go, oh, wait, that's where they went. None of that's in the movie.
Right.
So the whole sequence at the end is them tricking NIMH into thinking they've killed everybody because they build a second escape tunnel because they know that the exterminators are going to plug up. They're going to find and plug up an escape tunnel. So they build a fake one that the exterminators do plug up. But then there's the real escape tunnel that goes across the yard and comes up under a blackberry bush at the edge of the forest. That's the real escape tunnel. And so the plan is 10 of us are going to stay behind. And once the cyanide gas starts getting pumped in, we're going to run out and make a show of escaping into the forest.
Okay.
But 2 of them don't get out in time. So the scientists do find 2 dead rats
So they think, those were the rats, we got them?
In the colony.
They don't chase after the rats going into the forest?
Not at this point, although this is the first of a series of novels featuring the rats of NIMH. The author's daughter wrote a few books following, so maybe there's more.
So I see the duel as part of the road back, because this is Jenner as a vengeful force punishing Mrs. Brisby for the reward she seized, the forces she disturbed during her foray into the cave.
Okay.
And then what's his name? The toady?
Sullivan.
So Sullivan has a change of heart, and after...
Shapeshifter.
Yeah, exactly. Throws his dagger, and it pierces Jenner in the back, and he falls from the cliff where he's been having his duel.
It's also Sullivan's sword that Justin is using.
Oh.
Yeah, so he helps Justin twice.
Man, Sullivan's a well-armed mouse. Rat. He's a rat.
Yeah. Okay. I saw the sword fight as a part of the resurrection because we have this discussion all the time. The resurrection is like the big climactic scene at the end, and I thought that the sword fight between Justin and Jenner is a part of that.
Yeah,
in fact, it is that. It's in the novel, it's different, but in the film, this is the big exciting scene at the end.
I disagree. And so, again, this is an action-adventure movie, so every step of the journey is fraught with some kind of battle or violent conflict. So that brings us to resurrection. The hero is purified by death in a literal or symbolic way and returns to the land of the living a changed person. The battle's over, and all of a sudden, the cinder block house is sinking into the mud.
Right.
And it's like, no, we finally defeated the evil, and now, again, the forces of nature are taking over and drowning her children. They're trying to use pulleys to stop the brick sinking. It doesn't. They don't stop it. It's under the mud.
Yep.
There's your death. Your baptism by mud. The death of the rest of Mrs. Brisby's family. This whole movie, she's been trying to save Timmy.
I'm surprised you didn't talk about her diving into the water dish and coming up out of the water dish. That's her escaping. That's the baptism.
Snap!
But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Nice. Well done. Totally a baptism. So, Mrs. Brisby is distraught and horrified and empty, and then her courage of the heart has unlocked the power of the amulet. By the way, whose origin is never explained in the movie. There's just this amulet that Nicodemus has.
That was Jonathan's.
It was like, and by the way, that amulet, that would be like, the Flava Flav's clock around. It's like, for a mouse to wear that? It was the size of a mouse. And then it's suddenly small enough for her to wear. Anyway, it activates the blinding radiance, and she's holding on to the rope that's attached, and like Yoda, raising the X-Wing from the swamp, the cinder block rises and lands safely on dry land, and she has resurrected her family. She's brought them back to life.
And is that a little bit of a resurrection of Jonathan too? Because it was his amulet. And it's unlocked by her purity of heart.
Courage of the heart.
Courage of the heart?
Courage of the heart is very rare.
She displays courage throughout the film.
It just so happens that this is the most convenient time for the plot for the amulet to be unlocked.
Yeah, although she's not wearing the amulet. She takes the amulet off to go poison dragon. So that's why it is of no help to her. Although she's not wearing the amulet either when her house is sinking. It has fallen off, or something happened. Jenner smacked her and it flew off, right? Because it teleports to or travels to her. She casts Accio amulet or something, and it comes to her, and then she Yoda's the house out of the mud.
You're right.
So why didn't the amulet come to her while she was trapped in the birdcage?
Look, there's a lot of problems here. There's a lot of problems.
There's no amulet in the novel. There's no magic in the novel.
But the amulet...
She doesn't save herself in the novel. Justin actually comes back and rescues her. So she's a full damsel in distress in
Rescue
the novel.
from without.
Right, yeah. Final segment of the hero's journey is the freedom to live or return with the elixir. The hero, having won some precious treasure or reward, now returns to the ordinary world to share the spoils of battle. The final sequence of the film, the house is in its lovely new safe spot behind the lee of the stone.
The lee of the stone.
The lee of the stone. Timmy is feeling better. He wants to come outside and play. Jeremy gets himself a sweetheart. The sharing of the spoils of battle, let me get to that. Jeremy wants the sparkly, the amulet. And Mrs. Brisby reveals that she has given it to Justin so that it can be of use to him while he escorts his colony to their new home in Thorn Valley.
Right.
So that is the sharing of the spoils of battle. That's the conclusion. Jeremy and Mrs. Wright fly off into the sunset.
It's a classic denouement fade out.
Yep.
Establishing that everything's fine.
Yeah.
The Jeremy and his girlfriend storyline is sort of used as a nice little way to tie up everyone.
Pun intended.
Everyone's fine.
Because they've got
everyone's
that
happy.
damn string again.
Well, that's the end. Thank you for joining us as we grouse about the Mouse House. If you were entertained, inspired, or informed by this episode, please consider supporting The Hero's Journey. Visit patreon.com/Hero's Journey to pledge a single donation or become a monthly sponsor and earn bonus content.
Patrons who pledge a monthly donation of just $6 can not only access the bonus audio content, but also earn the right to vote on the subject of our next episode. So, mentor level patrons, because it is now 2020, the future is now. The next episode, we will cover science fiction films set in the year 2020. I've selected 3 options.
Option number 1 is a film Dan has been trying to get us to do since literally episode 3. Edge of Tomorrow, starring Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt as warriors battling to protect Earth from an alien invasion. Please vote for this one.
So I can shut up about it? Option 2.
By the way, Scott is going to hear this and immediately vote for something else. Immediately.
Yeah, probably. Good old Scott. Option 2, the 2002 film Reign of Fire, starring Matthew McConaughey and Christian Bale as survivors of a world set ablaze when an underground construction project awakens an actual muffa dragon. Dragon.
Such a stereotypical plot.
Bringing it back around, not Dragon the cat.
Oh,
This is an actual dragon.
And option 3, Pacific Rim, from director Guillermo del Toro, about a humanity on the brink of extinction after enormous kaiju emerge from the ocean and begin annihilating civilization.
I loves me a good humanity on the brink of civilization story.
Kaiju.
So mentors, head over to patreon.com/Hero's Journey and choose how the world ends.
Until such calamity occurs, The Hero's Journey will be continued to be produced by Jeff Garvin and Dan Zarzana with a musical...
What are you doing?
I'm just always enchanted by your use of the passive voice. Until such calamity occurs, The Hero's Journey will be continued to be
Not will to be to continued. What are you, Tor Johnson?
will continue
Time for
to be
go to bed.
to be produced by Jeff Garvin and Dan Zarzana with original music.
Have some more Pilsner. Good Lord. Taylor Jordan.
God,
Please,
damn it.
Taylor Jordan.
Thanks as always to the only rat more handsome than Justin, Dean Ethington, for designing our logo.
And in this episode, we sampled... Okay. What is happening? We sampled... God damn it.
Dan writes placeholder text so that I won't know what we drank. This will not be in the tidbits.
You do it too. All right. In this episode, we sampled... Prescription Pilsner from Institution Ale Company, Camarillo, California. Oh my gosh, we got through it.
The Secret of NIMH is copyright 1982, Mrs. Brisby Limited.
Brisby! Until next time,
Journey on. Jesus Christ.